Titled History is a Lie, the Jesinia Archive Theory, which serves as part 4 of their Empyrean Unlocked series.
And our mission for this deep dive is to step entirely away from the mechanics of dragon writing or, the spectacle of the magic system.
We're ignoring all of that.
Totally. We are going to examine the very foundation of this fictional world through the terrifying, insidious concept of historical erasure. Because this blog post argues that the most critical defining element of the entire Empyrean series isn't the war itself, it is how that war is being recorded.
Yes.
And more importantly, the specific unseen hands that are doing the recording.
Okay, let's unpack this. The blog post starts by demanding we draw a hard line in the sand between two concepts we usually conflate, right? A story and evidence.
Such a crucial distinction.
The author makes a brilliant point here. A story is inherently messy because it's told by the people who are actively living through the events.
Right, they're in the chaos.
Exactly. A story has chaos, uncertainty, the raw, unfiltered emotion of the present moment. The storyteller doesn't even know if they're going to survive the next chapter.
Yeah, but evidence.
Right.
Evidence is fundamentally different. Evidence is collected after the fact.
Yeah.
It's categorized, sterilized, cross-referenced, and stitched together by someone who already knows exactly how the story ends. And the mere existence of evidence implies a survivor. It implies a curator. And that distinction, that's the central pillar of the blog's argument.
Right, because if there is a single overarching theme this series has hammered into its readers relentlessly across thousands of pages, it's this history is never, ever as trustworthy as the people writing it.
Never.
Before we even touch the theory about who is writing the specific words you are reading right now, we have to look at the structural precedent the books have meticulously established.
We have to look at the absolute fragility of truth in the Kingdom of Navarre.
Because Navarre didn't just defeat the Venin.
No, they didn't.
They didn't just push back these terrifying, earth-draining magic wielders and sign a peace treaty. They completely surgically eradicated them from the historical record.
Eradication is the perfect word. The leadership of Navarre didn't just win a war and move on to rebuilding. They initiated a massive systemic cover-up. They buried historical records deep in restricted vaults. They actively executed truth-tellers or, anyone who dared to question the official narrative.
Which is just wild.
It is. They engineered a lie so structurally sound, so deeply embedded into the cultural bedrock, that an entire kingdom grew up believing it without a second thought.
And they maintained this fabricated reality not for, like, a decade or a generation.
Over 600 years?
6 centuries of a fabricated reality. I mean, think about the sheer logistical nightmare of maintaining a lie of that magnitude. It's staggering.
It requires absolute, unwavering complicity at every single level of society.
Yes. Children in Navarre are memorizing this lie in their primary history classes. The elite dragon riders, the military backbone of the entire nation, they're defending this lie with their lives, genuinely believing they're fighting for the ultimate good.
And the generals are enforcing it with brutal, lethal military discipline.
And perhaps the most unsettling detail of all, the dragons themselves.
Whoa, right.
These creatures of immense ancient wisdom actively tolerated and participated in this silence.
Yeah, they were in on it.
So when a lie permeates a society for 20 generations, touching everything from the chalkboard to the battlefield, the blog makes this chilling observation. That isn't communal ignorance. That is deliberate, weaponized editing.
It is a violently enforced editorial process. The ruling class of Navarre didn't just casually forget that the Venin existed, right?
No, they didn't just forget.
They weaponized their military and educational infrastructure to surgically remove a global existential threat from the collective memory of their own citizens.
I was actually chewing on this concept while reading the source material, and I want to play devil's advocate for a moment here, just regarding the sheer scale of the threat.
Okay, lay it on me.
So it's the difference between someone breaking into my house and smashing my computer with a hammer versus someone sneaking in and secretly corrupting my hard drive so that I don't even know my files have been altered.
Ooh, I like that analogy.
Right. The smashed computer is objectively terrible, like the machine is destroyed. But the corrupted hard drive is deeply insidious because it manipulates my perception of reality.
Exactly.
However, in the physical reality of the Empyrean universe, a Venin is a monster that can literally drain the life force from the very earth. They leave absolute barren devastation in their wake. They turn the ground to ash.
Yeah, they're physically terrifying.
So isn't a physical monster that destroys the ground you walk on objectively more dangerous than, Like a group of generals censoring a library vault?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, the blog actually anticipates this exact comparison and offers a really profound, sobering counter-argument.
Okay.
Yes, the Venin are a terrifying physical threat, but let's look at the actual scope of the damage over time. The blog author states it perfectly. The Venin corrupted villages, Navarre corrupted centuries.
Wow, corrupted centuries.
Right. A Venin destroys physical bodies and local landscapes, but a lie of this magnitude destroys the fundamental concept of truth for millions of people.
It weaponizes their own ignorance against them.
Precisely. The blog forces us to ask, which destructive force ultimately lasted longer? A Venin can kill a person, but a lie can kill generations.
Yeah.
A systemic lie can send millions of young soldiers to fight and die for the wrong cause against the wrong enemy.
Or worse, leave an entire civilization completely defenseless against a cataclysmic threat they don't even know exists.
Because their textbooks told them the monsters were just fairy tales.
Right.
So power in this universe isn't simply about who rides the biggest dragon or who commands the most potent magic. True. Lasting power is the ability to dictate what people believe is real.
Which means?
Therefore, the most dangerous weapon in the entire Empyrean universe isn't a dragon's breath. And it isn't a Venin.
It's a pen.
It is a pen. The supreme, unchecked ability to write the official, mandatory version of reality.
Realizing the pen is the ultimate weapon of mass destruction only solves half the puzzle, right?
Right.
The far more terrifying question is figuring out whose hand is actually holding it.
Yeah, who's writing this down?
And this is where the theory rips our attention completely away from the main swashbuckling heroes of the story.
Goodbye, heroes.
Right. We aren't analyzing Violet with her incredibly rare lightning-wielding abilities.
Yeah.
We aren't looking at Zidane and his shadow magic. The blog bypasses the battlefield entirely and points the finger directly at a seemingly quiet supporting character.
Jesinia.
Jesinia the scribe.
Yeah. Jesinia belongs to the one specific profession in this entire world that genuinely understands the devastating power of the pen.
Right.
Scribes are the architects of memory. Her entire narrative purpose in these books revolves around preserving knowledge in a political climate that is absolutely determined to destroy it.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because the blog highlights this massive structural clue that has been hidden in plain sight this entire time. Look at the logistics of where Jesinia actually operates within the story.
Oh, I love this part.
She isn't out there on the front lines, dodging blasts of fire and swinging a sword. She isn't embedded in the military command structure, barking tactical orders over a map. She isn't even central to the primary romance plots that drive so much of the narrative tension.
No, she's not.
So where do we always find her? She's in the archives, she's poring over old records, doing complex translations of dead languages. She is obsessively focused on the recovery of lost, deliberately erased knowledge.
The contrast is striking when you lay it out like that. While Violet, Zidane, and the rest of the writers are fighting desperately for literal physical survival day by day, Jesinia is fighting an entirely different war. She is fighting for memory.
Wow.
She is fighting to ensure that the objective truth actually survives the physical violence happening outside her door.
And the blog makes such a crucial philosophical point about the nature of scribes here. In our normal daily lives, we tend to think of scribes, historians, or archivists as these passive, neutral tape recorders who just quietly write down what happens without interfering.
Right, just documenting facts.
But they aren't neutral. They are filters. Scribes don't just record history. They actively decide what survives it.
Exactly.
History isn't subjective, pure mathematical truth that magically materializes for future generations. History is just memory, but only after it's been cleaned up, translated, put into a specific file, and physically handed to the next generation by a gatekeeper.
Every single archive that has ever existed has a gatekeeper.
Right.
Every official record has an editor. Every version of the truth has to physically pass through someone's hands and be deemed important enough to save before it ever reaches ours.
And the universal rule of the Empyrean universe, whether you look at the structure of the rebellion, the actions of characters like Brennan, the hidden history of the first 6 riders, or even the strategies of the Venin themselves, they all implicitly grasp this fundamental reality.
If you control the story, you control the future.
Yes.
The heroes with the swords might be the ones who win the physical battles, but the scribes are the ones who decide what the war actually meant.
This realization drags us directly into the most unsettling part of this deep dive, the archive problem.
Oh, this gives me chills.
Because if Jesinia is the ultimate gatekeeper, If she is the one actively deciding what this war means by compiling these historical records, when exactly is she doing all this compiling?
Right.
When?
The blog introduces a concept about the physical nature of archives that genuinely stopped me in my tracks. The author writes, "Archives are cemeteries."
It is a brilliant, heavy, and incredibly dark observation. I mean, think deeply about the practical nature of an archive.
Okay.
Nobody archives an unfinished, unfolding story.
Right. You don't?
You don't spend countless hours carefully preserving, cross-referencing, binding, and sealing records in a vault if the events are still happily happening in real time.
So what does this all mean? Let me frame the psychological impact like this for you listening. It's the difference between reading a frantic live text thread from your friend on a wild Friday night versus reading their official biography published 20 years later.
Oh, that's a great way to put it. Right. One is alive, unpredictable, and crackling with the unknown. Anything could happen in the very next text message. But the other implies the story is permanently closed.
Yeah.
A biography means the Friday nights are over. The blog points out that nobody seals meticulously documented files for future generations if the heroes just come home from the war, retire, and spend their remaining days drinking tea on a peaceful veranda.
Archives exist fundamentally because people died, and someone desperately needed to ensure they were remembered.
Exactly.
What's fascinating here is the stark visual shift the blog author demands of the reader. When we picture Jesinia translating ancient texts or cataloging hidden truths throughout the books, our natural instinct is to picture her sitting in a cozy, warm library.
Right, safe and sound.
Working concurrently alongside the events of the main plot. We imagine her reading a scroll while Violet is out flying, but this theory argues that is the entirely wrong image.
Completely wrong.
We shouldn't see her in a cozy library during the war. We should picture her standing alone in the absolute ruins, painstakingly gathering the shattered pieces of history long after the dust is finally settled.
And that haunting visual brings us to the dark, unavoidable question the blog poses to the reader. Why would a scribe need to preserve Violet's story with such painstaking, exhaustive archival detail? Unless Violet is no longer around to tell the story herself.
Oh, man.
The author of the blog post is completely ruthless about this possibility. They write, and this quote is just a gut punch, they write, "Maybe she survives. I hope she dies. But Empyrean has never promised safety. It has only promised consequences."
That quote perfectly encapsulates the massive stakes of this literary theory. It strips away the plot armor we automatically assume our protagonists wear.
Totally.
It forces us to confront the very real possibility that the main character we are following, cheering for, and stressing over might not actually make it to the end of her own story.
Or, at the absolute very least, that her active story concluded a long time ago, and we are just reading the autopsy report of her era.
Exactly.
So bringing together everything we've dissected today, Navarre's 600-year infrastructural history of manufacturing lies, the immense unchecked power of scribes as the gatekeepers of reality, and the morbid graveyard reality of why an archive is actually built.
We arrive at the grand conclusion.
We arrive at the actual Jesinia archive theory.
Right.
The theory states definitively that we, the readers, are not reading a live narrative. We aren't reading Violet's diary. We aren't even reading her later-in-life memoir.
We are reading a reconstructed historical account. We are reading the archive itself.
Yeah.
A massive, complex collection of third-party testimonies, official military records, intercepted correspondence, fragmented battle accounts, and preserved memories.
And all of it has been meticulously assembled, curated, and bound after the war is entirely concluded by the one single person uniquely qualified and positioned to do it, Jesinia. But I have to pause and push back on the ethical implications of this, because it feels like a massive leap regarding her character.
Okay, let's hear it.
Is the blog implying that Jesinia is actually a villain in disguise? Like, is she an unreliable narrator who is actively, maliciously manipulating the events to lie to us, the readers?
Oh, I see where you're going.
Is she just doing exactly what the Navarre leadership did for 600 years, making her the architect of a brand new lie?
This raises an important question, and it's where the blog post is very careful to inject a healthy dose of historiographical nuance.
Okay, good.
The author is absolutely not saying Jesinia is maliciously lying. They aren't casting her as some villain twirling a mustache in the shadows, gleefully deceiving the world.
Right.
The point the blog is making is far more realistic and deeply grounded in how the study of history actually functions in the real world. The core truth is that every historian, no matter how objective they try to be, leaves their fingerprints on a story.
Even when they're trying their absolute hardest not to. Because the sheer act of curating is an act of bias. You physically cannot include every single detail of a war. By deciding what is important enough to save for the archive, you are simultaneously inherently deciding what gets forgotten.
Precisely. If the 600-year lie of Navarre taught us anything, it's that the razor-thin difference between history and propaganda is often just the person who happens to be holding the pen.
Wow.
History is written by the victors, but more specifically, it's written by the surviving scribes of the victors.
Right.
Jesinia might be striving for the absolute unvarnished truth. She might be doing her best, but it is still undeniably her version of the truth.
Yeah.
It's heavily filtered through her personal experiences, her deep loyalties to her friends, her political biases, and her own limited understanding of events she wasn't physically present for.
And if the concept of truth in this specific fantasy world was successfully rewritten and maintained for 6 centuries once before, why on earth would we, as savvy readers, assume it can't be rewritten again?
Well, it shouldn't.
The blog leaves us with this incredible perspective-altering thought. What if the single most important writer in the entire Empyrean series was never actually a dragon writer at all?
What if it was the scribe who quietly wrote the writers into legend?
It completely recontextualizes the entire reading experience from page 1.
Yeah.
You are no longer passively flipping pages just asking what happens next.
No, you're forced to actively engage with the text.
You have to ask, why was this specific granular detail recorded? Who recorded it? And what agenda did they have for making sure I read it?
It transforms a fantasy novel into an interactive puzzle.
It really does. And that is the thrilling journey of today's deep dive. This theory doesn't just change how you look at the dragons and the magic of the Empyrean series, it completely changes how you consume media in general.
Oh, absolutely.
It forces you to look at any historical record, whether it's a beautifully bound massive fantasy novel, a dense history textbook from your school days, or even the daily curated news feed scrolling on your phone right now. And ask yourself those critical gatekeeper questions. Who exactly compiled this information? What pieces of the puzzle did they deliberately choose to leave out? And most importantly, why?
I mean, the implications are just staggering when you apply them directly back to the source material. I want to leave you with one final lingering thought to mull over, building on those interrogation questions the blog poses at the very end of the post.
Oh, weigh it on us.
If this massive book series truly is Jesinia's post-war archive, and if we accept the reality that every single historian inevitably leaves their fingerprints to shape the future,
Yeah.
what dark, inconvenient, or perhaps horrifying truths about Violet might Jesinia have deliberately omitted from these books?
Oh, man.
If Jesinia's ultimate goal in building this archive is to ensure the next generation remains peaceful and unified, maybe she simply couldn't afford to tell the whole truth about what her friends actually had to do to win the war. What if the objective truth you, as the reader, are so desperately clinging to as you turn the pages is actually just the carefully constructed start of the next 600-year lie?
Wow. A carefully curated crime scene file, compiled long after the bodies are buried. That is definitely something to keep in the back of your mind the next time you crack open a book and assume you're getting the whole story. Until next time.